In the spring of 1998, a family near Lancaster, Pennsylvania, cleared out a grandfather's barn. The man had been a carpenter his whole life. When he passed, the tools went into a wheelbarrow and out to the end of the driveway with a cardboard sign. Whole chest, $20. A young man stopped his truck, looked it over, and paid without bargaining. Inside that chest was a single wooden plane with a brass body and the maker's name stamped in the iron. He sold that one plane 4 years later for $900. The chest cost him $20. One tool inside it was worth 45 times the price of everything. That is not a story about luck. It is a story about what we threw away. For 200 years, a working man's tools were the most valuable thing he owned, more than his furniture, sometimes more than his land. He bought them once. He kept them sharp. He oiled the steel and waxed the wood. He handed them down. A good plane was named in a will, the same as a watch or a rifle. Then, somewhere after the war, we were told the tools were disposable. Buy the cheap one. Replace it when it breaks. And a country that once treasured a good plane learned to treat it like trash. The ones that survived are climbing now, quietly, at estate sales and country auctions, in the back of antique malls, on the screens of collectors who know exactly what they are looking at. The men who made these tools are long dead. No one builds them this way anymore, and every year there are fewer of them left because most were thrown in a dumpster by people who had no idea what they were holding. Number 19 sat in junk drawers for 50 years. A clean one now brings more than a week's groceries. Number 4 was so far ahead of its time that nothing made today does what it did, and collectors pay accordingly. And number 1 holds an entire library of knowledge inside one folded piece of steel. Knowledge most carpenters today cannot read anymore. These 25 tools were never just tools. They were the difference between a man who depended on no one and a man who waited for a truck. Hit subscribe and let us count down the 25 forgotten handyman tools that are becoming priceless, the ones they were sure you would let rot. Number 25, the Yankee push drill. You pushed the handle down. The spiral shaft spun the bit. You let the spring lift it back and pushed again. A pilot hole opened in seconds. No cranking, no cord. A carpenter kept one in his apron and drilled 100 screw holes a day with one hand. A Finnish man hanging cabinet hardware in the 1930s ran one all day and never gave it a thought. The cheap modern ones with plastic guts strip out in a season. The old steel ones with the maker's name on the barrel do not. That is why they climb. A working Yankee with its original bits in the hollow handle now sells for real money. Not because it is old, because nothing made today feels that good in the hand. Number 24, the bit brace and auger bits. You set the auger in the chuck. You leaned your chest into the pad and swept the handle in a wide circle. The bit pulled itself through the wood and through a curl of shavings with every turn. A man bored a clean 2-inch hole through a beam with no power and no noise. Barn builders in the 1890s drilled every peg hole in a timber frame this way by the 100. A full set of sharp auger bits in their canvas roll is getting hard to find. The good braces, the ones with the ratchet and the rosewood handle, get bid up every time one surfaces. Not a relic. A precision tool that runs on a sandwich and a strong arm.
Before we go on, I made something special for you. A guide for men like us who still believe a man should be able to fix his own home. It's the forgotten handyman secrets, the old-fashioned repair tricks our grandfathers used to fix anything around the house and keep it running for life. But these skills are disappearing fast, and once they're gone for good. Don't pay a repairman ever again. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link below. Go ahead, I'll wait right here.
Number 23, the E-jig beater hand drill. You turned the side crank and the gears spun the chuck fast. You drilled small, clean holes through metal and wood without a wall outlet in sight. Every household had one hanging by the back door. Then the cordless arrived and the egg beaters went to the dump by the thousands. The survivors are the ones with the cast iron frame and the wooden storage handle full of bits. Those bring 4 times what they did 10 years ago. The cheap battery drill dies in 5 years. The battery alone costs more than the whole egg beater did new. The one your grandfather owned still drills today, the same as the day he bought it. One outlasts the other by a century, and the slow one never left a man stranded with a dead pack and a job half done. Number 22. The wooden marking gauge. You set the fence to the line you wanted. You locked the wedge. You ran the pin along the board and scored a line dead parallel to the edge, every time perfectly. A joiner marked out a whole set of drawers with one in under a minute. The rosewood and brass ones are small, simple, and almost gone. Collectors buy them in pairs and threes now. A scratch of steel on wood does what a pencil never could. The pencil line moves under your eye. The scored line does not. He worked to the line that did not lie. Number 21. The sliding bevel. You loosened the wing nut. You set the blade to any angle you needed off a rafter or a stair stringer. You locked it down and carried that exact angle across the whole job. A framer cut 40 rafters to one setting and everyone dropped into place. The old ones in rosewood with the brass lever are getting scarce, and the price shows it. The plastic version from the home center wobbles loose mid-cut. The 100-year-old one holds its angle all day. You are not buying a shape. You are buying a memory that does not drift. Number 20. The brass plumb bob. You hung it on its line and waited for it to settle. When it went still, gravity itself drew you a perfectly vertical line, floor to ceiling. A mason set a whole chimney true with a string and a weight, the way the trade had done it since before the roads were paved. The heavy turned brass bobs with the steel tip are small works of art, and buyers treat them that way now. A cheap stamped one swings forever and never settles. A good one finds true in seconds. Men carried the same bob for 40 years, and it never needed a battery, never needed calibrating, never lied. Gravity does not go out of date. Number 19, the wooden chalk line reel. You filled the wooden case with powdered chalk. You pulled the string out coated blue, snapped it against the floor, and laid down a straight line 10 feet long in one motion. Carpenters snapped these blue lines across the subfloor of every house in the post-war building boom. Every junk drawer in America held one for 50 years. People tossed them by the handful. The turned wood and cast iron reels with the brass crank are the ones that climb now. A clean one brings more than a week's groceries at auction. The plastic ones crack. The old wooden ones do not. A simple line of chalk, snapped true, built half the houses on your street. Number 18. The spokesheave. You gripped the 2 handles and drew it toward you along the wood. The little blade peeled a fine shaving and left a curved surface smooth as glass. A wheelwright shaped a wagon spoke with it. A chairmaker rounded a leg. A cooper trued a barrel stave. The cast ones with the brass-trimmed mouth are sought hard now, and the wooden-bodied ones harder still. No machine leaves the surface a sharp spokesheave leaves. Furniture makers who know this pay whatever it takes. Not a sander, a blade that reads the grain and follows it. The good ones were never improved on. They were only forgotten, and the people forgetting them did the forgetting for us. Number 17, the draw knife. You took a handle in each hand and pulled the long blade toward your body. It stripped bark, hogged off waste, and shaped a beam faster than any tool with a cord. A timber framer squared a green log with it before noon. Every wheelwright and chair-bottomer in the country owned one before the factories came. The old ones with the folding handles and a maker's stamp on the blade are climbing every year. Collectors and green woodworkers chase them both. A power planer screams and throws dust. A sharp draw knife works in silence and reads the wood as it goes. One tool, two hands, a surface a machine cannot match. Number 16, the FROI. You set the heavy blade on the end of a log and struck the back of it with a wooden club. The wood split clean along its own grain into shingle after shingle. A mountain family roofed a whole barn with one froe and a pile of oak. Almost no one makes them now, and the old hand-forged ones bring strong money when they appear. The blade never dulls the way a saw dulls because it does not cut. It splits along the line the tree already drew. Riven wood sheds water for a century. Sawn wood rots because the saw tears across the grain the rain follows in. He split with the grain and the roof held. A simple wedge with a handle. And one of the oldest tools a man could own, still doing work no machine bothers to do. Number 15, the adze. You stood over the timber and swung it between your feet, chips flying with each stroke. It hollowed a log into a trough or flattened a beam to a line. Shipwrights on the coast and cabin builders in the hills lived by it. The old ones, gutter adzes and foot adzes both, are getting rare, and the hand-forged heads bring serious bids. A skilled man left a surface with an ADZ that no plane could equal for character. Swung between the feet, it looks dangerous to the eye and never touched the man who knew it. The tool did not change. The men who could swing it simply stopped being made. Number 14, the broad axe. You hewed to a chalk line, the wide flat blade slicing the round log down to a square beam. One face at a time, a whole house frame, hewn by hand before a single nail was driven. The barn raisings of the 1800s ran on these, one hewer to a face. The broad axes with the offset handle and a clear maker's mark are some of the most prized old tools there are. A clean one is a real investment now. No sawmill leaves the face a hewn beam wears. You can still read the axe strokes in 200-year-old barns, not a weapon. The tool that squared the timber every old house in your county stands on. Number 13, the slick. You held the long handle against your shoulder and pushed the wide chisel through the joint, pairing with the weight of your whole body. It cleaned a mortise and trimmed a tenon flush in one slow, controlled pass. Timber framers could not work without one. The men who raised the great barns across the Midwest in the 1880s carried one to every job. The big slicks, 2 inches wide and longer than your forearm, are scarce and getting scarcer. The price follows. You never struck a slick with a mallet. You pushed it, and it took off a shaving thinner than paper from a beam the size of your leg. Power and finesse in one tool. They do not make the steel like that anymore. Number 12, the peavey and the cant hook. You set the hook into the log and pulled the long handle. The timber rolled over like it weighed nothing. Loggers moved trees a team of men could not budge by hand. The old ones with the forged hook and the ash handle are bought up fast now by collectors and working woodsmen both. A heavy log that will not move by muscle turns with one pull on a good peavey. Leverage your grandfather understood in his bones, not brute force. A long handle and a sharp hook in the right place. The hydraulic loader replaced the man. It never replaced the tool he carried. Number 11, the breast drill. You leaned your chest into the curved plate at the top and cranked the side handle. Your body weight drove the bit while your arm turned it. A man drilled through quarter-inch steel with no electricity and no shop. Every farm and every blacksmith had one in the years before the power lines ever reached the back roads. The cast ones with the 2-speed gearing and the level on top are climbing hard. A cheap drill stalls in thick metal. A breast drill never does, because the power is your own body weight pressing down, bigger than the egg beater and twice as capable. The good ones are getting harder to find every single year. Number 10, hollows and rounds. You ran the curved sole along the edge of a board, and it cut a perfect bead, a cove, a length of molding by hand. A set ran from tiny to wide, a matched pair for every profile a house could need. A Finnish carpenter trimmed a whole parlor with a wooden box of these planes. Complete matched sets in good condition are among the most valuable hand tools that exist now. Buyers chase the rare profiles for years. The router bit chips and burns. A sharp wooden molder leaves a surface that needs no sanding. Every fine molding in every old house came off planes like these. Number 9, the router plane. The old men called it the old woman's tooth. You set the small blade to depth and ran it across the bottom of a groove, leveling it dead flat. It cut a clean dado, a hinge mortise, an inlay bed, everyone to the exact same depth. A cabinet maker could not fit a drawer without one. Every fine chest of drawers built before the factories took over owed its fit to this little plane. The Stanley cast ones and the early wooden ones both bring strong money now. Nothing else lands the bottom of a recess flat the way this does. A funny name on a forgotten tool, and one of the few that working woodworkers will outbid each other to own. The home tool industry in this country moves tens of billions of dollars a year. Look hard at what that money buys. A new plane off the shelf runs $40 in soft pot metal. It chatters, it tears the grain, and it is in a landfill inside 2 years. The 1920s plane it replaced sells for $200 today, and it still takes a shaving you can read a newspaper through. A bonded saw costs $20 and dies dull because they built it so you cannot sharpen it. The Diston it pushed off the shelf sold for under $3 in 1910. A clean one now brings $200, filed sharp and cutting straight after 100 years. You are not paying for a tool, you are paying for the next tool and the one after that. There was a stretch before the war when this country still made hand tools that lasted 3 lifetimes. Then someone did the math. A man who buys one plane forever is not a customer. He is a problem. So they stopped making the good ones, told you the cheap ones were just as good, and let the old steel go to the dump. The tools were not improved. They were replaced with something worse on purpose. And the few that survived are worth more every year because the world finally noticed what it threw out. Number 8. The post drill. You bolted it to a barn post, set the bit, and turned the big wheel while a ratchet fed it down into the steel. A farmer drilled clean holes through plow iron and wagon parts with no power at all in a shop lit by a single lamp. The cast ones with the maker's name and the original feed gear are real collector pieces now. They weigh 40 pounds, and they will outlast the barn they hang in. A drill press costs hundreds and dies when the motor burns out. The post drill never had a motor to burn. Bolted to a post 100 years ago. Still drilling if you can find one. Number 7. The leg vise. You clamped the work between the wooden jaws, and the long leg carried the force straight down into the floor. It held a board so still you could saw, chop, and plane against it without a shake. Every joiner's bench had one. The wrought iron leg vices with the original screw are bought up the moment they appear, and the price proves it. A cheap modern vise racks and slips under a hard cut. A leg vise does not move because the floor itself takes the load. Built when iron was forged by hand, found now only by the people who know to look. Number 6. The pedal grindstone. You sat, worked the treadle with your foot, and the big sandstone wheel spun while you held the blade to it. Both hands free, water dripping to keep the edge cool. A farmer sharpened every axe, chisel, and scythe on the place without a spark of electricity, the same slow way his own father had in the 1890s. The complete ones with the cast seat and the original stone are getting rare and dear. A bench grinder overheats the steel and ruins the temper in a heartbeat. The slow, wet wheel never did. It put a keen edge on without burning the very hardness out of the blade. Foot-powered, patient, and nearly gone. Number 5. The Diston hand saw. You set the teeth, drew the first stroke to start the kerf, and let the saw do the work on the push. A sharp one walked through a board straight and true with almost no effort. For 100 years, this was the finest saw a man could buy in America, carried by every house carpenter from the 1870s on. The old ones with the etched blade and the carved apple handle are climbing fast, and the rare patterns bring serious money. The bonded saw from the home center cannot be sharpened, so it dies dull. A diston was made to be filed sharp forever. One saw. A working lifetime. That is what priceless means. Number 4. The Stanley number 55. They called it a planing mill in a box. You fitted one of dozens of cutters into the body, and it cut almost any molding profile a man could draw. Beads, flutes, ogies, sashes, all from one tool and a wooden case full of irons. It was so far ahead of its time that nothing made today does what it did. A complete number 55 with every cutter and the original box is one of the prizes of the hand tool world. Collectors chase a full set for years and pay dearly when they find one. Not a plane. A whole molding shop folded into a box you could carry in one hand. Number 3. The Stanley Bedrock plane. You set the iron fine, took the front knob and the rear tote, and pushed. It threw a shaving you could read a newspaper through and left a surface no sandpaper could match. The Bedrock line was the best bench plane Stanley ever built, machined to a tolerance the regular ones never had. The clean ones, the rare sizes especially, are some of the most valuable users on Earth now. Woodworkers and collectors bid against each other every time one surfaces. The pot metal plane today chatters and tears the grain. A tuned bedrock leaves a finish like glass, made better than they had to, worth more every year for it. Number 2, the anvil. You set the hot iron on the face, and the hammer blow drove against 100 weight of solid steel that gave back nothing. Bend, draw, weld, shape. The whole farm's ironwork came off it. A good anvil was the heart of the place, and a man willed it to his son like land. The forged ones with a clear maker's stamp now sell for several dollars a pound and climbing, hundreds for a clean one, more for a great one. The cast doorstops sold today ring dead and dent under the first real blow. A true anvil rings like a bell and never marks. 200 years of work and still dead flat. There is a reason it is the one tool that almost never goes cheap. Number 1, the steel framing square. You laid it across a board and it gave you a right angle. That much anyone can see. But the body and the tongue of an old square carry a full set of tables, rafter lengths, board feet, brace measures, the octagon scale. A carpenter read those tables and cut every rafter, every hip, every stair in the house without a single calculation on paper. The whole geometry of building stamped into one folded piece of steel. The old ones, with the tables sharp and readable, are bought up by the people who can still use them, and that number shrinks every year. The square in the store today is blank. The tables are gone. Not because the math changed, because almost no one alive can read it anymore. That is the most valuable thing on this list, and you cannot put a price on it. The tool was never the steel. It was the knowledge folded inside it. That is the whole list. 25 tools, from the push drill down to the square, and every one of them tells the same quiet truth. They were built once, built right, and built to be handed down. A man bought a good plane at 30 and willed it to his grandson at 80, and it still cut clean. He did not replace it because it never wore out. That was the whole idea. A tool was a partner you kept for life, not a thing you used up and tossed in the bin. Then we were taught to want the cheap one, the disposable one, the one that breaks on schedule so you come back. And a country that once treasured a good saw learned to step over it at a yard sale without a second look. We did not lose these tools. We gave them away by the truckload for nothing to anyone who would haul them off. The ones climbing in value now are simply the few that someone could not bring himself to throw out. A grandson who kept the chest, a picker who knew, a barn that stayed locked for 40 years. You can still find them in the bottom of a chest at an estate sale, in a box marked free at the end of a driveway, in your own grandfather's shed under 50 years of dust, waiting for someone who knows what they are looking at. The price is going up because the supply is going down, and it is never coming back. No one forges anvils for farms anymore. No one stamps the rafter tables into a square. No one files the teeth on a saw meant to last a lifetime. When the last of these are gone, they are gone for good. What comes after is only ever a worse copy of a worse copy. But the real loss was never the steel. It was the man who stood beside you and said, "Here, hold it like this. Watch what it does." The tools are still out there. The voice that knew how to use them is the thing we are running out of. Find one of these before the world catches up to what it is worth. Then learn to use it. That is how the knowledge survives, not on a shelf, but in a hand. Buy the old tool, learn the old skill, and quit paying year after year for the privilege of owning nothing that lasts.